The Cretaceous period of the Mesozoic era became a real era of dinosaur heyday. At that time, a huge number of the most diverse reptiles lived on land, in water, and in the air. Many of them were real giants. They're familiar to us both from documentaries and feature films. Mass culture made them very popular all over the world. And today, we'll tell you about the main confrontations between dinosaurs and their contemporaries. The arms race between carnivores and herbivores once again approached its apogee. But another natural cataclysm ended this stage with another major extinction. The Cretaceous period lasted about 79 million years. It began about 145 and ended about 66 million years ago. The giant continents of Gondwana and Laurasia finally split into the continents we know today. At the same time, the level of the world ocean first rose and then fell. From about the middle of the period, the average air temperature across the planet gradually fell. Ice caps formed at the poles. In some regions, the temperature dropped to plus 4 degrees Celsius in the winter, but the last 4 to 5 million years have seen a slow warming. In the second half of the period, a real revolution took place in the plant kingdom. Flowering or angiosperms appeared. In the forests of the Cretaceous period, oaks, beeches, and magnolias of almost modern appearance were already in full swing, but there was still no grass under them. Scientists associate the evolution of flowering plants with the flourishing of insects. With their help, pollination of angiosperms began to occur. Diatoms have also been known since the Cretaceous period. They're notable for the fact that their skeleton consists of silicone. The remains of these algae are the basis of siliceous slits and other deposits. The marine fauna of the Cretaceous period was also very diverse. It included more than 600,000 families of various animals. For comparison, scientists know only 450,000 families from Devon, which is often called the Age of Fish. At the beginning of the Cretaceous, the main marine predators were pliosaurs. We talked about them in a previous video, dedicated to the battles of animals of the Jurassic period. Among the pliosaurs of the Cretaceous period, which competed both with each other and with other species of marine animals, we can note the Kronosaurus and Dolichoronchops. According to some estimates, the body length of the Kronosaurus could be up to 10 meters long. This giant weighed about 11 tons. The age of the remains found in Australia and Colombia is around 100 to 120 million years old. Scientists also have real evidence of dramatic confrontations of marine animals involving Kronosaurs. When analyzing the contents of their stomachs, researchers found that these marine reptiles ate both large and small elasmosaurids, sharks, and even small turtles. The largest prey of these lizards was believed to have weighed about 3 tons. This shows that the Kronosaurus successfully butchered animals that they could not swallow whole. Also, on the skull of a small lizard from the elasmosaurid family, Vulungosaurus traces of the teeth of this predatory pliosaur were found. It's not surprising, because the teeth of Kronosaurus are similar in shape to the teeth of killer whales or crocodiles, and in size reach 30 centimeters together with the crown. The bite force was also comparable to the jaw strength of modern crocodiles. Dolichoronchops, by all indications, was a fish-eating plesiosaur. Its length didn't exceed 3 meters. It had large eyes and an elongated mouth. This made its muzzle similar to the muzzles of ichthyosaurs. Dolichoronchops lived in the territory of the modern United States in the period from 70 to 93 million years ago. In the seas and oceans of the Cretaceous period, various types of corals, sea urchins, and bivalves continued to develop. A huge number of microorganisms and small-shelled crustaceans also appeared. They were part of the plankton. The shells of many of them had a calcareous structure. Now they form the basis of the bottom sediments of that period. But the real masters of the seas of the Cretaceous period, of course, were the Mosasaurids. These giants appeared only in the second half of the period, but it's quite difficult to imagine that someone could offer them worthy resistance. Most likely, only their relatives could pose a danger to them. The Mosasaur, which gave its name to the family, became the first of a large number of rulers of the world ocean at the end of the dinosaur era. Subsequently, the remains of mosasaurs were discovered in the Netherlands, the USA, Russia, Belgium, Japan, New Zealand, Antarctica, Africa, and Scandinavia. The largest of them, Hoffman's mosasaur, grew up to 17 meters in length, but other species were at least 10 meters in size. The mass of these lizards reached 15 tons. Outwardly, these monsters resembled giant crocodiles with flippers instead of legs and a huge mouth full of sharp teeth. But despite being the status of a megapredator, the mosasaur could also become someone's lunch. In 2014, an incomplete skeleton of a small mosasaur with a very interesting history was discovered. The remains found were quite well preserved, and scientists were able to study the contents of its stomach. The mosasaur's last meal was a fish about 1 meter long, but literally immediately after a hearty meal, the lizard became the prey of at least 3 sharks. This is evidenced by the preserved traces of teeth on its bones. Pterodactyloids continued to reign in the airspace, but by the end of the Cretaceous period, they reached truly gigantic sizes. Such lizards as Quetzalcoatlus, Aerotitan, or Hatzegopteryx can be confidently called the kings of the air. The wingspan of an adult was rarely less than 10 meters. Scientists are still debating how such giants could take off. These flying lizards fed on fish, small dinosaurs, and carrion. But at this time, a large number of real competitors of pterosaurs appeared. We're talking about birds. They turned out to be more adapted to changes in living conditions and were able to survive the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. In the Cretaceous period, such seabirds as Ichthyornis, Hesperornis, and Baptornis appeared. In size and structure, Ichthyornis resembled modern seagulls. Their body length was about 20 centimeters, and their wingspan was 50 centimeters. They weighed from 300 to 600 grams. These birds could dive and survive underwater for a long time without air. Naturally, their main food was fish. They lived on the shores of the seas in modern USA and Europe about 85 to 96 million years ago. Hesperornis and Baptornis were similar to penguins and led a corresponding lifestyle. Hesperornis grew up to 180 centimeters. Their remains have been found in the USA, Russia, and Kazakhstan. They lived in these places about 80 million years ago. It's believed that they mainly lived on the banks of freshwater bodies. They almost had no wings and, naturally, couldn't fly. But these birds swam well and caught fish with their toothed mouths. Earlier Baptornis were not such large fish-eating birds as Hesperornis, but they led a similar lifestyle. However, their legs, in all likelihood, were similar to flippers. The remains of these birds were found in deposits aged 80 to 87 million years in the USA, Canada, and Sweden. Among the flying birds that appeared in the Cretaceous period, we can note the fan-tailed ones, Confuciusornis, Longipteryx, and Iberomsornis. Confuciusornis is a small bird the size of a crow. As you can guess from the name, it was discovered in China. These birds lived here about 120 to 125 million years ago. It's noteworthy that the Confuciusornis has no teeth. Although later and closer to modern birds, Hesperornis and Ichthyornis were toothy. Confuciusornis ate plant seeds and insects. The body length of Longipteryx was only about 15 centimeters. It also lived in China about 120 to 125 million years ago. A distinctive feature of this small bird was its elongated beak, which made up about 60% of its full body length. At the tip of the beak, it had several large, powerful teeth. At first, scientists assumed that it was a tool for catching fish, but later, the stomach contents of one of the fossilized specimens were studied. It turned out that the Longipteryx ate the seeds of gymnosperms. It seems that they used their teeth to extract these seeds from cones. Iberomsornis, which lived at the same time in Spain, was much closer in structure to modern birds. It was a small bird with a body length of only up to 15 centimeters and a wingspan of up to 20 centimeters. Iberomsornis ate insects. At the moment, science doesn't know much about these birds. Researchers have only one specimen, and it's without a skull and wings. But nevertheless, the most dramatic confrontations between animals took place on land. The Cretaceous period saw the heyday of a wide variety of carnivorous and herbivorous dinosaurs. Both acquired a variety of new devices for attack or defense. Of course, the dominant predators on different continents were the largest theropods. The most famous of them is undoubtedly the Tyrannosaurus rex. This predator, which lived in North America, is the hero of a large number of Hollywood blockbusters and documentaries about dinosaurs. Even our channel dedicated several separate episodes to this. Asian herbivores were terrified by the relative of the T-Rex, Tarbosaurus. In Africa lived the Carcharodontosaurus. In South America, Giganotosaurus. All of them walked on two legs and had giant mouths filled with large, sharp teeth. Also, Tyrannosaurids and other large theropods had a powerful short neck. With its help, they could lift and shake the captured prey, causing it even more suffering. Tyrannosaurus and its relatives were most often confronted by the largest herbivores of that time. These were sauropods, stegosaurs, ceratopsians, and many other types of dinosaurs. We talked about sauropods in detail in a previous video. In the Cretaceous period, among these long-necked giants, you can distinguish the Argentinosaurus, Titanosaurus, or Brachiosaurus. If we've already talked about the first two species more than once, then this time we'll dwell on the third one in more detail. Brachiosaurus is notable for the fact that it was discovered in India. The name of this sauropod means heavy-bodied lizard, and in fact, these dinosaurs were simply enormous in size. For example, the tibia of a single specimen is almost a third larger than the same part of the body of an Argentinosaurus. The total length of this giant is estimated at around 37 meters. The height's at 10 to 12 meters, and the body weight is at 95 tons. However, all these estimates are extremely unreliable, since all the specimens were lost, and the final dimensions were determined by a group of enthusiasts based on available photographs. There was even a version that these were not dinosaur bones, but petrified trees. But scientists know quite a bit about other herbivores of the end of the dinosaur era. At that time, a large number of different ceratopsians lived in different parts of the planet. Three-horned dinosaurs with massive frills. It's quite possible that the main predator of all the times, the T-Rex, often confronted Triceratops. Their weight was up to 9 tons, body length up to 8 meters, and height up to 2 to 3 meters. The skull of the largest of the found Triceratops is more than 2 meters long. The weapons of these giants were horns, of which there were many as 3, 1 on the nose and 2 above the eyes. And if the nasal horn was very small, then the other 2 could grow more than 1 meter in length. Probably they served ceratopsians to protect themselves from predators and even more often for fights with each other. Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus protect themselves from taller predators with the help of spikes on their backs or strong bone armor. They also had spikes or a bone club on the tip of a mobile long tail. The largest of the armored dinosaurs, North American Ankylosaurs, were 7 meters long and weighed up to 6 tons. Also in the Cretaceous period, smaller theropods lived on our planet, like velociraptors or oviraptors. The former were agile and fast predators. There's a version that says they hunted in packs and could pose a danger even to the largest herbivores. Their body length was less than 2 meters, and their height was no more than 70 centimeters. Velociraptors were covered with feathers and had large claws on their hind legs. However, in feature films, they're most often shown as a smaller copy of a Tyrannosaurus. Oviraptors lived in Mongolia and were slightly larger, but apparently they were omnivores. Animals that lived near water bodies could not feel at ease either. In the Cretaceous period, giant crocodilomorphs could be found in them, such as Sarcosuchus, Caprisuchus, or Deinosuchus. It's quite possible that semi-aquatic duck-billed dinosaurs, such as the hadrosaur, could often become victims of these monsters. The remains of Sarcosuchus, dating from 93 to 120 million years ago, are found in both Africa and Brazil. They grew up to 9 meters in length and weighed 2 to 3 tons. A slightly later Caprisuchus lived in Niger. According to various estimates, the length of this crocodilomorph ranged from 3 to 6.5 meters. Deinosuchus were contemporaries and neighbors of Tyrannosaurs. They're extinct representatives of the alligator family and are close in structure to their modern relatives. Only Deinosuchus grew up to 12 meters and weighed up to 8.5 tons. Such a monster could well have tried to drive away from its pond even a T-Rex that came too close. Initially, the bite force of a Deinosuchus was estimated at about 18 kilonewtons. But later, a group of scientists studied the bite force of 83 adult living modern crocodiles of various species. As a result, it turned out that the strongest jaws belonged to saltwater crocodiles. They slammed shut with a force of almost 16.5 kilonewtons. Having transferred these results to the dimensions of Deinosuchus, the scientists received a figure of 102.8 kilonewtons. Looking at the fauna of the Cretaceous period, one might get the impression that this was the time when huge theropods, crocodilomorphs, and mosasaurs ate all living things around them. But as always in nature, there was a balance of forces back then. In addition to modern birds, the first modern lizards, snakes, and even placental mammals appeared at this time. Among them were both the ancestors of ungulates and the first primates, that is, our immediate ancestors. But who they had to face in the struggle for survival after the extinction of the dinosaurs, we'll find out from the next issue. In conclusion, as always, thanks to everyone who watched the video all the way to the very end. You can learn more about the appearance and study of the animals presented in this video from our other videos on the channel. They also talk about the flora and fauna of other geological eras, the formation of humanity, and the peculiarities of the mutual existence of people and nature today.